Welcome back, everybody, to Gringos Liberados. My name is Trajan. I'm joined by 4x4, and we scrounged up a fresh Gringo for you. We found a new one. Jamada is joining us here, having hopped on the CBLOL co-streams recently as of this split. Welcome to Gringos Liberados.
Obrigado, bem-vindo.
Oh,
I think that's how you say it.
He's
Thank you for the welcome.
Close enough.
Pero, if that's still but in Portuguese, I don't know. Still, sal gringo.
Okay, welcome. But
hello.
There it is. Okay, well, there you go. Nailed it, right? He's already one of us. So you joined in the when exactly did you start co-streaming CBLOL? Because it was
so
start the
round 4.
Round 4.
Round 4. Oh no, round 3. So I think I caught Lost versus Furia as well. So everything after that, I caught. Everything before that, I was completely clueless about. Obviously, I know some of the big names.
So
to
you
the
must know
CBLOL
House
still,
then, obviously, if you know the big names.
of course.
Don't do this to him.
Look. If House is going to keep doing it to me, then I'm going to have to do it to everybody else. I have to lash out. So
This is our version of generational
House
trauma.
is like my special Blorbo, who is a mid laner who I think is good and has been dropped for the 7th time from a CPL team or something. Sadly,
Tragic.
He did not make it into the playoff picture. But there we go. So we won't ask you about Leviathan or whatever, because we haven't got to that point.
Yep.
I'm sure Lazart would love to hear your opinion on Leviathan, but sadly, I don't think man has one. So you'll have to wait till next split for that one, Lazart. But for now, you joined in at round 4. Did you have any exposure to the CBLOL before starting this co-stream, generally speaking?
Oh gosh, just like bits and pieces over the last couple of years, where it's like I'll tap into Brazil, I'll watch a game here and there, and it was just always really fun. The one thing that I always found, especially when I caught the split like stronger teams, because that's one thing I've noticed, at least over the last year and a half, I'm always seeing like different teams seem to be leading the pack, like pretty much split on split. But mechanically, these Brazilian teams are really good, and I think it would kind of surprise a lot more people if they watched the region a bit more. I think especially last year you saw at MSI, like mechanically these teams can push some of the best in the West, like it's possible. So that's always been the fun thing for me, just watching them kind of crush it with the hands on that side of things.
Yeah, so we've always got AD carries churning out that can do some crazy stuff when they get to international, just because the mechanics are front and center there. Sometimes, I think we're decidedly moved on. I'm sure Hank, you'd agree with this. We've moved on from like the complete sort of carnival circus sort of style of gameplay. Like we are making just gestures towards macro at this stage. They're often gestures, but
it's often lip service towards macro, and I think that is true at the top end. And I think, but I think at the bottom end, you still get some sort of carnival stuff, or like you see like maybe the outlines of macro, and then just like when push comes to shove, right? It's one thing to do this in scrims, or you can say all the right things in the pregame interview, or like the interview right after draft. But then when push comes to shove, and you've got, you've got someone in a side lane right before an objective setup, and you've got to make that snap decision of, is it Herald time or is it Dragon time? Then you see like the vision start to fall apart, and like guys start to kind of go off in their own little directions. I do think the macro might have peaked in 2025 as far as like when we got peak Furia under Think Card.
Yeah.
I think since then it's slid a little bit, right? But like them and Cade last year. But things are moving in the right direction, and it's come with a lot of some internal improvements, right? Some guys like Talkers and stuff, but even like Red, I don't think is like the best macro team, but we'll kind of get there. But like you have seen a lot of, unfortunately, like it's been a lot of outside influences that have come in and to straighten Brazil out, if you would. Exactly, like taking them by the shoulders and shake them and just like, do not take that extra wave, right? Like and stuff like that.
Yeah, like a lot of the time as well, even if the teams lower in the league would like to gesture towards some macro, the mechanical check is very strong. Like they do have to overcome the laning phase and the highly mechanical AD carries, top laners especially now, like now Kaze in the mid lane. Like there are a lot of people who will just blow you out of the game before you have a chance to fix your wave state. Like it's just kind of done and dusted before they get a chance to do that. And then when the top teams get against each other, Red, Furia, and Loud now, I suppose, top team Loud, I guess, it does kind of descend a little bit. But Jamada, when you were watching these last few series, so you saw Furia Los, so you've seen our top 4 essentially. Like, was there any particular team that you felt like this is a team with a plan? This is a team that is clearly executing on some sort of intentionality, as opposed to like, wow, they certainly have a 5-0 Pantheon jungle. I guess they're gonna win.
I mean, I think for me, I mean, it typically did end up just being our top 2 teams, right? In Loud and excuse me, in Red. I was just before I touch on Red, because Red is the team I'd like to talk about a little bit more. I was actually more surprised given the circumstances around Loud's lineup come round 4 and the matchup into Red.
Oh yeah,
that they looked as good as they did. You know, I feel like a lot of times, for me at least, I think the 2 most important roles to ever have like substitutes come in are jungle and support. And then I think the one directly after that is always mid lane. So the fact that, you know, Envy came in, obviously very tenured to Brazil, right? And just kind of just role played. He didn't have to do anything crazy. Like even in that series, I would argue he kind of got gap 3 out of 4 of the games relatively hard.
Yeah, he got solo killed like way more than you would think.
Yeah. Like
given that it was a 3-0.
Exactly. It just didn't matter. Like he, other than that, like he just like did his thing. Whatever his role was in the whatever draft it was, he played perfectly, or near perfectly, and that was enough to get them over the line. But for me, I think Red definitely have the most like intentionality behind their games and you know, their drafts, right? It generally, I don't think there was a draft where I like kind of walked away and thought, wow, these guys are clueless. They have no idea how they want to play this draft. Like, I think for me, that was at least one thing where I looked at Red and I went, okay, even if I don't necessarily agree with the final products of drafts, like let's say for instance, it was the game where they had Tristana and Ziggs, and I want to say it was Nidalee jungle. That composition is some arse.
It was,
but
it was spicy stuff. Yeah.
The other team just couldn't play into it just because of the way that Red kind of just took space, slowed like the game down when it was necessary, and played off of the range of the composition. And also, just I think people don't respect how well Nidalee scales with that support build. So it was, yeah, for me, that's the team that I kind of look at and go, they have the most like game plan behind their eyes when it comes to looking at game to game and just like pre stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like as Hans said, I think it used to be Furia, but the loss of Think Card has completely sort of stagnated the team, where they're still good at the same things they were good at, but ultimately that team completely collapsed in Split 3 2025, and then lost Think Card and changed nothing else. So it seems like they picked themselves back off that, but with VKS toppling off, it's given them, I think, room to just keep doing what they're doing, which just has a ceiling on it. The floor is quite high, the ceiling is high for Brazil, and it, you know, we saw the Game 5 series versus G2, which was this exact same roster, and the strengths are still strong. Tatu is still absolutely, I don't know how we've hung on to him for this long and probably aren't going to be able to for much longer, but it's, the talent is clearly there, but there is no vision really, I think, to like move this team forward. So Red beat them 3 times in a row, first in the regular season, then in the upper bracket, then in the lower bracket, in the same way every time, and there was no like progress there really. They got 1 game in the lower bracket, but it was kind of a gimme. So I think that Red feels like a team that is still growing and improving, and because they have players like Rebello and Kaze and Curse, who are still young and like very moldable. At least Curse is quite moldable, Rebello as well. I think Kaze is kind of an elemental force, but it's that feels like a team with plenty of room still to go. And then I guess Loud is, because this is completely fresh just from here, and now they've only played this roster for 2 best of 5s with Envy.
Yep, total of 7 games on stage.
Yeah. So, and now we're going to first stand, or I guess not necessarily going anywhere, but you know, we're going to first stand to play against Chovy or whatever. And in comparison to Red, then, how does Loud strike you as a team? Are they like just clutching it out hardcore every single game? Are they drafting in a particularly interesting way? What's their edge that they're finding over Red, if this is the team that theoretically has the most kind of sense behind it right now?
I think for me, it's Bull and it's Shino. I think those are the 2 that I'm looking at and I'm going, these are the X Factor players. These are the guys where it's like, okay, if you give Shino a good top lane matchup, he might just run it over solo. If you give him a champion that's good for the game, he'll take over the team fights later on. There's loads of examples you could give realistically over the playoffs, even in the 2 series against Red. Like I think the Cassante game was one in the finals, where I just kind of kept looking at him and go, so like the people that are still complaining about Cassante now,
yeah.
He's one of the reasons.
This is what they want to see.
And then the other one, obviously in ball, I just think, at least like kind of taking it from a typical air quotes Western perspective of Korean import comes in, looks bloody incredible mechanically. He's the janitor of the team, right? If he feels like there's an angle to squeeze, it feels like there's an angle to squeeze. And I think, from this outside perspective that I have, the one thing that I really loved watching the series over the weekend and the week prior was typically Korean imports are really, really reserved. And obviously the Brazilian culture is not like that at all on stage. So seeing Ball get up out of his chair, having that to me was really, really cool. And I think it kind of bleeds into the gameplay a little bit, because I don't feel like I see too many Korean players come to the West and play like psychopaths and really actually look like they're mechanically limiting testing. And Ball's doing that like every other game. So for me, those are the 2 players. I'm prepping for Loud, and I'm like trying to make sure, like in the context of an international, okay, guys, let's not lose to the Brazilian team. Let's not like get upset. I'm trying to make sure I'm keeping Shino down and I'm keeping Ball down. Those are the guys that I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, these guys could do something freaky.
Yeah, Louder. They're unbelievable. But I think something that I was kind of thinking about, and I thought about it in the context of Furia. I was talking to an LCS caster last night, helped them kind of prep for America's Cup, and I was like, with Loud and with Furia, to kind of something you said, Jamada, it reminded me of what I was talking about last night, how Envy just kind of came in and just, got the 7 out of 10 on the newspaper the morning after the match, right? Like, didn't do anything stupid. In fact, kind of, like you said, kind of got ran a little bit in lane, but the experience and how to play out on a side lane, how to make these little how to team fight much better, right? Knowing kind of where to come in on a team fight from. Like, I think I see that in Furia. So what I told this caster was like, I think the best version of Furia needs to have a competent Tuts in the mid lane, right? And it kind of reminded me of, no, mid lane isn't what it was in kind of 2014, 15 or whatever, right? But you really feel it if a mid laner is invisible and dragging you down, right? And that's kind of what Mago was doing in the first iteration. And even though Trajan and I will say, like, look, he was starting to improve. Things were starting to go better.
He was just starting to get better. In there. And then he walked out.
You get Envy in there, who is just an absolute rock. And you go, oh, shit. Like, this is what it can look like to not have a guy who sometimes is a black hole, right? But again, sometimes being a black hole is so detrimental, right? If you have a guy just come in there and cosplay a 7 out of 10, oh my goodness, like the whole map unlocks.
Yeah, bro,
and even like culturally, I'll
3 and 2.
Yeah, no, and culturally, I think, just to jump on what Jamada said, I think you nailed it. And Trajan, you and I have seen examples so often of people who come into Brazil and try to de-Brazil, especially right Koreans that are coaches, right? But like to y'all's point, I think you nailed it. That I'm glad you see it, Jamada. That, like you said, culturally they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? But when the players, the foreigners, but especially the Koreans who have come in here and like have the personality to like embrace that, they're the ones that thrive, right? Yeah. They don't have this kind of butting of heads, right? Because we saw Trick come in here for like 2 weeks.
Oh,
and
gosh,
then said,
wow, it was ugly stuff, man. Yeah.
And said he came in, just dropped 2 massive turds, and then said, F this, I'm out.
And was like, I don't like Brazil, I'm going away.
Yeah.
And they were like,
which is okay. But it's so hard to overcome that.
Yeah, like Loud famously racked up 4 straight titles, the most titles that anyone's ever won in a row, the second most titles that any org has ever won, behind INTZ,
tied for second with
who
Kaboom,
still have 5. Well, now it's 5, so now they're tied with INTZ, who are quaking in their boots. But
no, this one doesn't count. This one doesn't count.
It
is a CBLOL Cup title. It is not a CBLOL. It is a separate.
I'm sure the INTZ fans will be wheeling that one out for years to come.
Do I agree or disagree with it? Not important.
You gotta steel man it, yeah. But like, so for Loud, like they were mostly they kind of hit that stride off the back of Croc Jungle, who was, as I kind of noticed as the split went on, remarkably similar to Young Jay in many ways. Yeah. If you're on the same page as him, he is a freak on the Rift, and he will do some crazy stuff, and he'll forget to buy his jungle item on the MSI stage and things like this, but he will completely run the map and will run Brazil if you let him. And Young Jay, once they got on the same page with him, it was so obvious. And like within a week of Young Jay coming to Brazil, we had like a Young Jay core compilation video out that's like a perfectly cut screams montage. Like he was so suited to Brazil as like a Korean import, and he had the writing on his armpit. He did the Brunsey armpit like writing. Like he got straight involved, and that's with Raze. That's with a Korean coach, and we've seen Coach Stardust come across before, who I think by all intents remarkably failed to achieve anything. He stuck around, which is more than people expected, but he's been
fine.
Ran a couple of tier 1 rosters into nowhere, including Loud at one point, is now in tier 2, I think, still. I don't know, because he was with Los in tier 2, but I don't know if he still is somewhere.
Yeah.
But it seemed like he was trying to approach Brazil from a non-Brazilian perspective and just couldn't wrangle the players, couldn't get a roster that fit together, and couldn't get them, I think, to maybe play or approach it in the way that he wanted. Whereas Raze has come in and taken 2 really exciting Korean imports, and like one being Young Jay, who naturally fits in very well. And Bull, personality-wise, he is a bit more understated, but he will get up and, you know, and take his applause, but he plays like very, very much more like Root, which Loud also had, and for a couple of their championships. And he's put this together with Shino as a rookie, with initially Margot, but now like identifying Envy, and then keeping Redbert, who was incredibly suspicious for large stretches of his career, but seems to be exactly what this roster needs somehow. Like, what Raze has done with this roster is just excellent. It's pulled so many disparate pieces together to make them better than the sum. So,
and on the Redbird thing, did you guys see what he did to Frosty after?
He pulled his medals out. Yeah, he was like, "This is what it looks like to win a championship, brother man." Yeah,
because Frosty in the all chat in the previous series was like, "Oh, you're washed. Like, you know, like your career is coming to an end."
Right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then had the medals locked and loaded in the audience before the handshakes, before the GGs. Went over into the crowd, said, "Give me that shit." Before homie had just taken his headset off, says, "Hey, this is what a decorated champion looks." Unbelievable. Like
6-1, brother. So 6-1.
That's gas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good.
And this was the same guy who was getting edited to look like he was pregnant by the Loud Twitter account like one split ago. And I don't know why. That was with Griffin on the team, and the implication I think was that Griffin had impregnated him, but I'm not sure how.
Which again, what are the implications of that? God knows, but
it's just in the podcast to unravel it, I think. But that's like the environment they're in. But he can still just walk onto a grand final stage, lock the heck in, and then like just wave his medals in the opponent's face because he earned it. So this final in particular, the Loud Red series, 3-0 to Loud. And we already talked a little bit that, you know, the red drafts do seem to make a lot of sense. But for Loud here, we I don't know, because the first series game especially was when we were doing Nocturne without Orianna, and we were like, hey, we're just gonna rock it anyway, we're gonna roll it. And the amount of value that Redbird got out of like Lulu Nocturne ult combos, I was
gonna say, yeah, that was we have Nocturne Orianna at home, was the Nocturne Lulu. That was crazy.
Yeah. Given like we've had games before where Young Jay just kind of rips a Nocturne and it's just diabolical. It's just like everything he does turns to ash in his hands. But I was worried that was going to be this one again. But Jamada, when we're locking Nocturne, it seems like everyone can do the Nocturne Orianna crutch. Everyone can just like whip that one out in a pinch. But how viable is Nocturne right now as a jungle pick, just with anything? Because it seems like it worked great here, but realistically, what's the actual power of that?
I mean, it's realistically just about making sure you've got enough dive, and also I don't think it's not, you know, your Jarvan where you can slam it with one other engage tool, and if you need to play defensively, you can play defensively with it, but obviously you want to usually go forward, or you know, your Vi, your Xin Zhao. I don't think it's on that tier. But if you know there's only really going to be like 1 to 2 key targets on an enemy draft, and you're not locking jungle first 3, then I can see some viability in Nocturne if you've got other dive aspects with it, right? I think the thing that made it so kind of workable in that that specific game was with Aurora and I want to say Rek'Sai.
Yeah.
And And obviously, I mean, hey, they were using the Lulu knockup as the engage, but you've got other ways of at the very least making things very chaotic in those team fights, where it's like, okay, lights off, Aurora ult, and you don't know where Rek'Sai is going to come from. And I think as long as you've got kind of, at least other layers of that with a Nocturne, it's fine. But I definitely don't think it's hey, let's draft Nocturne B1 game 1 draft, right? It's definitely not like that. The other space as well is because it was into Xin, and I think that's one of the few champions where you can kind of just get away with it. Jungle matchup wise, just because Xin, I mean, it's not that Xin loses the 1v1, but there's quite a few like easy things to spell shield, and then also Xin can kind of just not catch up after he's been feared. So early game, it's kind of hard to invade him, and then you kind of scale. I don't want to say linearly. Xin definitely outscales him, but I think Nocturne scales depending on the comp around him, whereas Xin, I think his scaling is pretty much always linear unless he's gone Enchantment, then it kind of breaks the game. So
it's a little more dependent.
Yeah. I think that Nocturne is realistically your game 2 or game 3 champion, if that's the style of game that you want to end up playing. So I was pretty shocked. I was pretty stunlocked when they whipped it out game on. They're just like, yeah, you know what, screw it. Like, let's just go with it. And Lulu was the binding piece that made the draft work.
Yeah, a 1-1-19 game from Redbird's Lulu there. Quite a turnaround from his last time, but that was when we first like, oh, hang on, this is not going to be a liability in the bot lane like we expected. And that kind of bounces forward to the next thing, which is the Rebello problem, where Rebello isn't a problem, generally. He's never a problem. But in this series, he had,
except of course,
maybe the biggest nightmare I've seen of his career so far. It was just tragic stuff for him, and he was getting focused pretty heavily. Like, Loud was trying to play through Bull in the laning phase quite a lot. I think that's a good idea. It's a very, very reliable win condition there, but I did not expect the Rebello collapse, Hank, I'll be honest, to this degree.
No, I don't think anyone did. No, it was a shame because he had been just like the picture of consistency, right? It's not quite like, IU where like, okay, you kind of stick him on a scaler, right? Because Rebello had played more the MF, Jin, Kaisa, right? Stuff like that. But to watch him just be like as completely useless as he was. And I do think that while you can put it on Rebello, I do think, and I apologize if I'm jumping ahead on your rundown here, Trajan, but FNB as well, I think, kind of suffered from a similar sort of uselessness, or like it felt like, especially in game 3. Game 3 was the biggest tragedy because I felt like game 1 and game 2, it was a little more like, okay, you kind of lost fair and square to be a little brief and reductive, but like in game 3, Loud kept giving that over. And FNB had like 2 items and everybody else was on 1. Curse had a 306 100% KP Trundle game. The stars aligned, and Red, it felt so scared. Like, I don't know what else to do to call it, but like, and not to take away from Loud's team fighting was still really, really good. And the way that they kind of chose like 3 different angles to work in on, and like, there were a couple fights to stick out. Like, there was one in the Baron pit where like they could essentially do nothing, and to your point, Jamada, Bull was playing like an absolute psychopath. And cleanse flash Eing on Ezreal in places that you shouldn't, as a more traditional head screwed on correctly AD carry. But it was a shame to see. For me, the biggest tragedy was FNB, because especially in that Gwen game, the guy has a tattoo of Gwen, for crying out loud.
Oh,
he does. I learned of that yesterday. Like Tinones has the Ari tattoo, which, hey, fair enough. You're one of the GOATs, right? What he did in 2014 will be immortal. He has a Gwen tattoo. And I think just how does it feel to every time you look down on wherever that is on his body, you're going to be reminded of, oh, I put up an absolute clanger in that game 3 when I was given all the resources and all the ability to carry. And just, but it's FNB. It's I thought he had gotten past the choker narratives, right? The choke and playoff narrative.
Yeah, he just shaken that one. But
it's the same shit of like, when things get unstable, I'm going to try to play hero ball.
Yeah, and they gave him all the gold, so he has to.
Yeah,
he almost has to. And like,
I'm Gwen for crying. It's not even the ticking time bomb meme. You are the like, you have rolled the grenade into the room already. Like, to have that big of a lead and to choke how you did. But it's like, but I think it was symptomatic because Gwen needs setup, obviously, right? You can't just send her in there by herself, right? But that's what FNB feels like he has to do, unfortunately, is to go in there and make a hero play and get that perfect, out of nowhere Q sweet spot that's going to like swing the fight, and just like these things that are wholly unrealistic against a team like Loud, who, yes, they're deeply flawed, but they will punish shit like that is really kind of basic stuff, right? Yeah. I think all of Red emotionally really terrify me, because they were put in such fantastic spots over and over and over again. And when it came to nut cutting time, they tensed up. They tensed up and they played these fights so poorly, and just individual mistakes were just awful. Whereas like with Furia, when they go down together, right? It is always Tatu puts his flag in the ground and says, charge, right? And it is Battle of Helm's Deep, right? It is just, we are going in, live or die, we're going to go in together. Whereas Red, it is so separate and disparate, and it's so much more frustrating.
And I don't know why it works for Red against Furia, but not against Loud. I don't know why they're so composed against Furia, but not against Loud. It's very
I don't know.
weird to me. And so, like, maybe the FNB Gwen tattoo is like a curse mark, and when he finally wins finals on it, it'll disappear from his arm. But
it'll turn into like Chibi Gwen or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll turn into Smolder or something, and then he has to do it with Smolder next. Like, but it's the FNB playoff Stroker arc kind of returned with a vengeance there. He just kind of did nothing, and this was kind of the main thing because he'd been the only person who could hold Gigo down consistently. He was able to hold like our entire top echelon down, except for Shino, who people were already like talking about like Brazilian national teams, and they're just like banging Shino in the top lane now after this split. And like I was like, okay, it's been one cup.
Like, come on, like, it's been a month.
But like, how do you do that to FNB twice, man?
And over and over again.
Because FNB went to cross conference and he looked good. He was a great
and that's what I thought he had shaken the choker narrative, because it's like you were in finally a time where you can get to international, like squeak in kind of the back door, if you will, right? Because of Americas, and get this extra seed for Brazil. And like Shopify were a deeply flawed team, and Fudge, he's a solid enough laner, but over 5 games. He put Fudge in the dumpster, and he team fought so well. And he had a couple of there was the Yorick game he had in cross conference, right? Like to whip out something like that on such a big stage, that had FNB goes 0-5-0 in the first 10 minutes written all over it.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this looked like the first time Rebello really crumbled. I think in the last fight, in game 3, they're like trying to approach Baron, and I think they're still ahead at this point. And it feels like he's like over a jungle terrain wall looking for a way into, but he doesn't want to dive into like Malphite, Ambessa, Miasma, like Alistar. Like he doesn't really feel like he has a way in, but he just spends the entire fight not auto-attacking anybody. And it just ends, Baron goes, and the game just kind of ends shortly after that. I don't know if it's just like, if that's a comp issue at that point, or if he's just kind of cracking in the moment. But I think Kaze still stood up really well in this series. His Victor game almost got the job done, and he had to be the entire carry because Rebello was 0-8. The Akali game was not great, I'll be honest. But game 2 wasn't good for anybody on Red. And then the Rise game, like Rise Kaze was still hitting. So I still feel good about Kaze. I think he still feels like, I don't know if can I still say he's the best player in the league after Loud beat them again? Maybe Bull's the best player in the league. I don't know.
Best performing right now, I think, is a distinction.
I think Tatu still has a shout for it as well.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if you saw the Jamada, but like the CBLOL official
first
account,
little stats. Yeah.
Just the flat circle.
Just the flat circle. You don't need.
Yeah.
That's like it's like, bro. Like, and I know this will resound with some people. It's like when you play Dragon Ball, and it's like they've got all 8 stats right around the octagon. Yeah, just fully. It's like you're just, congratulations, you are Super Saiyan Gogeta. Like enjoy. You just get freedom to do whatever you want. Tatu. I mean, even in the one series I did get to, or technically the 2. Even in the loss to Red, looked like just a beast. Like I like the way that guy plays the jungle. So I do expect decent things out of him. As well, come Copa America or America's Cup.
Yeah. So like that, we can bounce forward to Copa America in just a second. We'll quickly report the final standings from the CBLOL English Fantasy League, where sadly the reign of Lunar Day has returned. She has taken that win. Now I will say that I closed the gap in the last week again, and if I'd set Madame roster in week 5 or whatever it was and had a normal roster, I'm pretty sure I could have won this, but sadly, Lunar Day is the Hey de Fantasia once again. And she's, as expected, being very humble and not at all annoying about it. But that's alright, because she won. So, next split, we'll have to try and take her down. Like, I did pretty well in this one, I'll be honest, but I think largely it was just like, oh, I don't have enough budget to switch off my Loud players, and then Loud just started beating everybody, and I was like, aha, I have economically lucked into a genius move. So yeah, I'll take the win on that one. Next split, sadly, we'll go for it. RMC ended up in third. Paradox, who was the previous King of Fantasy, ended up in fourth. With Ray in fifth, and we had a couple of drop-offs at the bottom who indexed very hard on VKS, and then they got trounced, and I think they were like, well, threw the hands up and went, what's the point? My dudes are dead. So we'll see how...
I've got to say, my funny takeaway here, sorry to cut you off, is that Rayo in fifth, his name is literally just, we must beat Luna.
Yeah, he was on one.
Like, as someone who knows nothing about this fantasy league, that is bloody hilarious. The fact that he's still come first.
Yeah, that is the inevitability, sadly. Luna Day is the Thanos of CBLOL English, unfortunately. We can quickly touch on the VKS news, actually, because we have got... I don't know if it's confirmed, but we've got basically confirmed what the moves are going to be. So VKS famously exploded. They were the champions last split, and the attitude was
literal Kai-Wing.
They got literal Kai-Wing. CL spent 12 hours on a Zoom call convincing Kai-Wing to come to Brazil. You know, cute, leave no money track. But it's... And then, like, for anyone who watched Beyond the Stars, which is their, like, TSM Legends that VKS does, and basically, after they lost in the lower bracket to Leviathan, who were a largely rookies from the LLA scene who are consistently judged and valued to be less than CBLOL players, because they generally have been, but there's people like Kaze, and they overperformed for sure, but VKS should have won this 100%. And basically, half of what CL was doing just was apologizing to Kai-Wing. He was like, I am so sorry.
Please don't leave.
Basically, yes. He was literally like bowing and scraping, literally, to be like, please, I'm so sorry that I brought you into this team and then we presented you with this dog shit. Like, it was quite like sort of peep show levels of I have to look away, you know? But that's how strongly he felt, right? And he was very like stridently being like, and he basically went as far as not naming them, but basically named them for Bolin, basically just called Mortius ass, like in that post-series meeting. And it was like, I don't think you needed to do this now, to be honest. It went on a bit too long, but he was very upset.
But CL is the poster boy for emotional extremes one way or the other. So if nothing else, he is consistent.
If we don't, it's disgusting, yeah. Like, so Bol and Mortius are rumored, almost confirmed, to be out. The replacements being Wiser in the top lane, previously on Pain, Champion on Pain, qualifying out of play-ins at Worlds for the first time for CBLOL on Pain.
Let the record show.
And Seo, who was the Leviathan AD carry that knocked him out, who admittedly was having a banger split and was knocked out by Pain from that playoffs final match to get out of group stage when he was on R7 at the time. So is kind of the LLA's poster child for AD carry in this era, certainly in the last year of LLA, and had a very impressive split on Leviathan, is a super consistent player, has had a pretty middling support, and I think putting him with Kai-Wing is very exciting. If they gel, that's going to be amazing.
Could be sick.
So the biggest thing here, I was not surprised when Bol went back down to being B tier, because I think it just was a fluke, and I was like, how has this happened so suddenly? It kind of just ended up being a fluke, and apparently his attitude wasn't good. The Mortius thing,
that floored me.
This was meant to be the guy that CL built his 5-year plan around from Academy to now. He was like, he brought in Smiley in the first year of the project, played him for a whole year, the entire time in public impressors saying, Mortius is going to be the AD carry of this team. Smiley is a placeholder. He knows that. You all know that. We're all clear on this. Smiley's happy with it. Mortius is the guy. They bring him in. He looks good. They win a championship. And then they have one bad, not even necessarily a full split, and he's gone? The centerpiece?
Yeah.
How?
Which, I mean, that just has to point to something off the rift, because there is literally no other explanation.
it's insane that this has happened. He didn't.
Yeah.
Mortius didn't
I mean,
play great in the series. He was making uncharacteristic errors, but it's like
yeah,
the
but like
CBLOL Cup.
but it's one split, and I mean, again, it must have been something where, or Kai Wing just said like it's him or me.
This guy's
Again,
ass. Give me a real AD carry.
This is speculation, but
Can
You
you
know
find
what? I can buy
Doggo?
that.
Can you ship Doggo over real quick? Can we
Yeah.
the boy? But
Yeah.
bro,
no, it was remarkable.
yeah.
No, I mean, luckily for Morteus, I don't know about Bull, but Morteus will get another job at some
He
point,
will,
or whatever
and
team
he
melts
should.
down in Split 2, right? Like Split 3, someone will pick him up. Wiser, the poster child for the one Brazilian who has, or the one Korean who has stuck around long enough to literally be by the LoL esports rules a Brazilian resident now.
Yeah.
So, because I looked at, I was like, those are a lot of
Yeah.
not green and yellow flags in the emojis. Oh right, Wiser's Brazilian now.
Yeah, pretty much. And he never acted Brazilian. He maintained
No, he was
his
very
LCK
subdued.
poker face the entire time, but is naturalized, I believe, has a partner in Brazil and is like,
Yeah, I think so.
he lives here now.
He's bought in, man. He's here.
He's bought it, which is sick. And like, he didn't have the best final split on Pain, but he's had down splits before. Everyone was like, okay, we're ready for Wiser to go. That's fine. They brought Robo back in, which, sure. But I think there's definitely a real chance for Wiser to just get back to business and start being much more reliable, much more like what Gigo was for VKS before, where you can rely on him to carry. He's not as much of a fair weather top laner. And Seo's kind of the same. I think his floor is higher. I don't necessarily know if his ceiling is higher than Mortius's, but his floor definitely is.
I would say they're similar. But I think it's going to just come down to like how quickly he gels with Kai Wing, right? Because that's another thing that the old kind of Cade rosters had, which is so funny to be referring to them in like the perfect past tense already. But the infrastructure was, the selling point, right? And the stability was the selling point, right? And how Morteus was literally being,
5-year plan.
prepared in a lab, grown in a petri dish to be taken out at a very specific time and temperature to be placed into this team.
And then it worked.
And now you said, fuck it, let's just go get CEO. Yeah, it did work. It was sick until it wasn't, I guess.
And I guess like when we get the post-year report for this year, which I'm already looking forward to be honest.
Oh, it's going to be hilarious.
Like, because they had the Gigo was originally part of the plan, and they had to pivot to Bowl. And I don't think Bowl was ever meant to be a permanent thing. I think this is probably the right choice. I still think Bowl just doesn't necessarily have it, I guess, in the context now. Hindsight's 2020, but like, I think this is probably right and a fine change to bring Wiser in. But yeah, the Seo thing, I do think Seo was good, and I think VKS are going to be better for it. I don't know if this wins them a title, though. I don't know if they beat Red or... I don't know if they beat Loud. I don't know if they beat Loud with this. Does Wiser will be a new fun like challenge for Shino, who has been clapping every well-known top laner in the region for the last 5 weeks, so... Cool, man. I'm tentatively excited. I do think it limits them, and I don't know how permanent these changes are, but I do. They had to do something. I think the Mortius dropping is crazy, but I like his replacement, so I'm not going to get too mad. Okay, right. Let's talk a little bit about Copa Americas, because Jamada, you've also been covering the LCS, so you've actually got some knowledge. So I like loosely tune into the LCS, not as much. I used to watch it a lot originally for TSM back in the Bjergsen days, then for TL for a while.
Didn't we all?
Yeah. But now there's no TSM to be found. There's no TL to be found. They're back to fourth. Back to fourth.
Yeah.
We gave them Jose Deodo as well. They took Jose from us and then dumped him in fourth, which is
massive failure.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty grim. Especially the thing that Dokla said in the interview, where he was like, he had an opportunity. Not like TL didn't offer him the spot, but like they were in conversation. I think like he was potentially like they didn't want him essentially. Like TL was like, no, thank you to Dokla, and then he wins he wins a title.
Yeah,
and,
hilarious. Second straight split that he has come in not on purpose and done unbelievably well.
Yeah, the Dokla of it all is pretty fascinating stuff. Considering like I don't think he did much against Red when they were against 100 Thieves, or was it VKS that knocked them out and it looked like kind of mid? But he's just eternal, I think. So So we have the matchups. Best of threes in the first round. C9 versus Furia and Red versus Sentinels. Now, I do think this is actually the preferable matchup for the CBLOL. I think this is the better way around for us. Because Tattoo, Blabber, see, people are like, are we sacking Blabber now? People seem to be like done with Blabber, which I've not watched. Are you done with Blabber? Are we done?
I'm the that guy is the North American Rezork, as far as I'm concerned.
Really?
Yeah. I've heard that comp. Yeah,
Mr. not getting it done.
Look, I like Blabber a lot as a player, as long as there aren't stakes. As long as there aren't stakes.
Yeah.
I love Blabber. I love Blabber to bits. I love his aggression. I love his meticulous aggression, I think is the way I'll put it, where he understands the windows of how to abuse jungle matchups, basically second to none outside of Inspired, right? He is just incredibly smart. But when it comes to needing to clutch up, he hasn't had it, right?
Have the pedal.
And the bottom line is, people remember first place more than they remember second, but at this point we're starting to remember second more than we remember first place, because second keeps on being C9. And so I'm curious to see how he's gonna do now in this bracket, where I think to a degree I would expect C9 to come in even like arguably a little bit angry. Their travel down to Brazil seems to have been a bit of a nightmare. I'm not sure what exactly the flight path was. I know obviously it's northern hemisphere to southern hemisphere, but down to Sao Paulo it was 24 hours almost worth of travel.
So that shouldn't take that long.
So as someone who, I'll give you guys some of the lore on this, because I am also a Los Angeles resident. Technically I live in Long Beach, but same county. There used to be pre-2017 Korean Air of all airlines offered a direct Los Angeles to Sao Paulo. They discontinued that before, like a couple years before the pandemic, and then it has come back, but like in very, very specific windows, and definitely not on weekdays. So, to be able to, and like the turnaround, like let alone obviously the travel time itself was ridiculous, but to be able to book that, right? Basically the direct flights do not come around very often at all. So if you're coming from Los Angeles, you have to either have to fly to like Chicago or New York, or like, somewhere in the Midwest or East Coast, and then take a flight down, or you have to make one or two stops in like Panama, Bogota. Like you have to stop somewhere in Central America, and it can get really, really nasty. Yeah, because direct from LA to Sao Paulo, they just don't do it anymore.
I'm taking this as karmic vindication for VKS's travel problems at Worlds when we sent them, and it took them like 2 days to get from one to the other with multiple cancelled flights, overnights in airports, and then obviously a pretty rough. They did okay, but I think they could have done better. And even that's assuming that previous formula was holding together still, which it was maybe starting to fray at that point. So yeah, I'll take it. We have the home crowd advantage, the home fans who will get in your face, the players who will get in your face and slap you with medals or whatever if you dare to lose a game. So the environment is definitely going to be very Brazil favored. Now, I would have loved to go into this like C9 Furia and go, it's either like 2-0 Furia if Furia are like switched on and get all of the home crowd advantage, C9 are a little sleepy, and they approach like the mid and top lane correctly, or I think it gets like dragged out and they lose 2-1 because the problems of Furia are just get exposed potentially. I think that the mid lane is an interesting one here, because obviously APA is a very particular guy. He has a very particular pool and style that people seem to go back and forth trying to pinch him or not. I think if you give this man Talia as Furia, you are tripping and trying to lose.
He is nice.
Like Tuts has a very serviceable to good Talia. Like, just take it. Just take it. I don't care what you pair with it. Pair it with Pantheon. Pair it with Vi. I don't care. Just take it. And then you've got like a Nico and a Ziggs and a Zir to kind of think about from that point. Is there anything? Does APA has he been playing anything else particularly to any frequency or?
No, because they've not really been pushed. They haven't been pushed to have to do anything else besides the Lion series, and even in that Lion series, it was they had the Annie incident, which I actually think
I saw
outside
that,
of
yeah.
outside of lane, which I think APA just made some uncharacteristic decisions. It's Annie, so it's more about how you look at fights and how you try and find flanks and approach them. He still seemed good on that front, so I'm just gonna make the bold assumption here. C9 not under pressure of finals. He has to get pushed to Annie for whatever reason in this best of 3. That'll look serviceable. And I think he played like one Rise game throughout the entire split, and that might have actually been in finals. I think that was the final game of that series. So I actually think that APA's pool is I think it's acceptably large now. I think for a long time he had the mantra of like being the Ziggs OTP guy and having serviceable Orianna and like acceptable Victor maybe. But now I think he's pretty nice on all of it. And frankly, I was at the point where I was saying, to me, he had probably the best performing Talia in the West.
Yeah,
just
Talia was
the 3 or 4 games that we got out of him prior to the Lion series. He was just nuts. And then he was also doing like the different builds too, where he was the only guy that I'd seen running Spellbook on Talia and going like the whole Blackfire Torch into Actualizer and just saying, yeah, I don't need Rylai's and the tier item to be useful and deal damage. No, I will build like flat damage up front and I will one-shot carries if I land the combo. And I'll have the utility of Spellbook. So it was really interesting take on that champ that I haven't really seen any other mid laner do. At least not habitually like he has. So that's been very interesting. And from the games that I got to see out of Touch, like I do feel like if he's having a sleepy, we'll dub it the sleepy series, right? If he falls asleep at the wheel, like APA will abuse him. And that will be very, very, very problematic, I think, for Furia as a whole, because C9 are a very jungle-centric team. Their game plans typically focus very heavily around jungle, and I think it's why they collapsed, because Lion were the best prepping team in NA throughout playoffs. They understood that very well. We covered it on Power Spike, actually. Shout out the podcast I'm on too, where it's like there was an interview with Dom sideline game 4, and they were just like, I can't remember who was interviewing him, but they were like, "What do you need to do this game to have a much better looking game 4?"
Everything is going horribly behind.
Yeah, but wait, no, it's because Dom goes, we just need a stable early game. All of these early games, they've just been like, been having these crazy invades or whatever go on. We just need something stable. And then they look up at the screen, and Inspired is literally just on their blue buff at level 2. And it's just like, great. Lion understand this series really well. So I think if Furia go into this series with that kind of prep, then, that might be something that C9 aren't expecting. But again, I think that's the kind of way that you kind of knock the legs from underneath C9, is you kind of come at them with, relatively rigid game plans and just stick with it and just throw everything towards that. And if things start to go a little bit awry, I think C9 have shown tendencies to struggle a little bit outside of the finals whenever they've had these weird, like, we've fallen behind a bit game states to kind of come back into it. Easily, at least.
Yeah.
And I think that if there is anyone that could maybe have a little bit of the Inspireds about him, it could be Tatu. Because I think, to your point, Jamada, the mid lane could be an unmitigated disaster. Depending on the matchups, APA could just walk all over Tuts, right? Because he has a propensity to just not show up in certain series. But I think the jungle matchup is going to be absolutely fascinating to watch. And I think all of this is with the caveat that the American teams do take it seriously. And I'm playing amateur psychologist here, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. But I can't help but think about, again, false equivalence, but run with me. When we had the America's Challengers tournament, the Tier 2 versus Tier 2 tournament, Scary Jerry, who did have an LCS stint, but then it was very quick. He came down, he was on Dragonsteel, and they were like, they expected to run the tournament. In a pregame interview, he said, like, yeah, I don't expect us to drop a single game here. Like, I don't even know what we're kind of doing down here. And they didn't even make the playoff stage. They got dumped out in very unceremonious fashion. So if the American teams do show up and, say like, okay, we can't lose to Brazil, right? Let's kind of lock in here and play for, pride in this boot camp or whatever, right? Then I think that will go a long way to determining who wins this, because I think the Brazil, obviously they're going to have the fans on their backs. But I'm hopeful that C9 and Sentinels do kind of show up to play.
Yeah. I think what I don't want to see from Tuts, I don't want to see a Kali. Don't do it. Don't lock a Kali into this guy.
I was floored at how many actual Akali games he played. I didn't realize it was that many throughout the split.
I want to see Ari, I want to see Talia, I want to see Victor, maybe even a Galio.
Rise.
Like, just, I don't want to see you trying to flex on APA, because better men have tried to flex on APA and tripped over it. And like, we just don't have to do that. And like, it's not where you're going to win. It's not where you're going to win the series for Furia. You're going to win it, but through jungle, I think, potentially. Top lane's an interesting one. I think Gigo, actually, as much as he does have what we call Gigod and Gigon games on this podcast, I think he actually holds up remarkably well into international opponents. We have seen that from him, that he did really well into BB in the G2 games. Like, he can trip over his own feet domestically, but internationally, he actually, I think, rises to the challenge quite well, and he is very experienced. Thanatos is obviously a bit of a different beast. Like, this guy is crazy. Whoa. Now, they did beat C9 in a best of one last year with Thanatos on the team, but it was from my memory, I think it was quite jungle centric. I think it was like they just kind of steamrolled over them. It was a short game, 25 minutes or so, maybe 29 minutes, but it was pretty clean. And the team was the only difference was mid lane from that roster. I think the bot lane is up in the air. Io and Jojo have not looked their 100% at the end of the season, I will say. They're still very good. Jojo, I think, is still very good, but Io, I think, is not quite right. And I think he is a die on mid-wave kind of AD carry at times. He does make some sort of bungles later on. Their laning is still very, very good, though. So, like, if we get strong lane 2v2, Gigo holds up under the Thanatos pressure, and we don't try and check APA, and we let Tatu run the show, I think that Furia could 2-0 them. Or I think they approach the series wrong, they don't prep properly for them, and they try and approach it in the wrong way, and I think, yeah, they get dragged out to a 2-1 loss. Which wouldn't be too bad, but I think that's probably what I'm leaning more towards. I've lost a little bit because of the lack of new coaching staff on Furia, and I think Furies is just... he's not really been able to show us anything new so far. They didn't manage to find any way to crack through Red, despite the fact that Red plays a very consistent style that is quite similar to Furia's, and they couldn't find an opening, so I don't necessarily trust their ability to like strategically outmaneuver people right now. So I don't know. We'll see we'll see how awake C9 is, and we'll see how much Furia has been able to get work done behind the scenes. And that series, I think, started or is starting like now in like.
I was about to say, like,
time.
for transparency for those that aren't listening live on stream, we are streaming this like, I think, yeah, Cloud9 is about to kick off in.
Yeah. So we got the analysis in before, so no one can say that we're pre-watching.
Yep,
it's been done.
That's true.
And the evidence is on Jamada's stream bot, so
yeah. It's a rare instance, yeah.
Yeah. So the other series, the last thing we can talk about is Red Sentinels. This one I think is more decidedly comfortable for me. I think Curse is maybe the struggle bus for Red, but he does have some really cool draft angles to use. And the only angle for me is I've not watched Handback closely enough to say what that jungle matchup is going to look like. But Jamada, what's your vibe on Handback right now?
I think Handback is a psycho, but he's a good psycho. And for me, I feel like if Sentinels actually build a game plan around like wanting to play off what Handback wants to do, they'll look a lot more comfortable. I think the main critique for me is that Sentinels have been a little bit of like a shotgun team almost, where one shell is Handback and then the other shell is Rahel and Huvi. And if it's not those two, then you can't really expect much else out of Sentinels, in my opinion. That's just been my overall read on the Sentinels lineup. And Darkwings, unfortunately, is just really... Okay, I don't think he's bad, but he's a bit too... I don't want to say one trick, but his pool is very, very control mage heavy, and he can't play anything else. So I think for me, that's an area where if I'm looking at, Sentinels as from the Red perspective, I would love to be Kaze right now in the mid lane, where it's like, oh, what, I can lock in a Kali against this guy, and I'm basically not really gonna get punished. I could lock in, I could get like really freaky. I could do a Silas or whatever. Like, Kaze to me is the perfect antithesis player to Darkwings that could really abuse that 1v1. And And so, Sentinels will have to be playing with that in mind, because I would like to imagine Red will be playing with that in mind coming into this game if I've seen anything. But yeah, my main concern for Red on the other side would just simply be the bot lane. And I think how that also interacts with the jungle matchup too, because I think that Harmbuck has made a bit of a point to play quite heavily around the bot side of the map. Yeah. Impact has had a tumultuous season, to say the least. And I think because of that, it's lent to him playing towards the bottom side. So I think if Curse is just handed really simple games and simple drafts where he doesn't have to do a lot, I think he'll look a lot more comfortable, because I think whenever you've had to kind of ask something of Curse in the games that I've watched in the back half of playoffs, that's when it seemed like he struggled. Like, I think if he could act as a passenger in a lot of those games, then he did so. But if you needed him to be the one that progresses the game, that's when things get hard.
Yeah, I think there's some of those clutch decisions that need to be made. Multiple Red games were lost because Curse chose the wrong moment to force a vial, or to flash engage at the wrong time. I think it's just the immaturity of the player. He's still very young, and I think we can see that. Like, he's very coachable by all accounts. Talkers speaks very highly of his ability to learn, but he's still got learning to do. And yeah, up until the finals, I would have been like, bot lane's chill as heck. Bot lane's a lock. Rebello and Frosty are great 2v2. They don't give leads. They don't normally get leads. They're super rock solid. That Loud series was the first time we really saw Rebello get exposed, as we talked about before. So if that's a one-off, and Bull and Redbert were just on one, and, but Sentinels, as you said, are likely to play through jungle to bot, and that's potential. That's what Loud did, and it completely folded Rebello up. So they're going to need to try and adjust that, try and work out what they're doing about this. If Curse has to help them, we need to give Kaze room to play. I think FMB and Impact will have a cromulent time in playing Cassante versus Rumble, and that's going to be that. And then we'll see what they do in team fights. But we can't be banking on FMB. That's just not the way Red wins. They don't win that way. Let's please enable Kaze, and let's keep bot lane stable. So I'm hoping that the bot lane Loud thing was kind of was something of a one-off, just because it's not been the downfall of Red so much before, but in that matchup it really was tragic for them. So and hopefully we can bank off the newness of Sentinels, the inexperience of some of their players, and be able to really snowball. Just get like a Kaze Rise who's 6-1 or something, or get a Kaze Silas counter pick or a LeBlanc counter pick that just completely smashes the lane and takes that wherever he wants. That's, I think, where that works. But yeah, I feel more confident about Red here. Mainly, I think, because we did see them in cross-conference before, and they looked really good. The only people they couldn't beat was FlyQuest and BKS. And that was a split ago. So I'm feeling good about that. But I would I give them 2-0? Am I that confident with them? I don't know. I think on the bot lane I'm gonna have to give Sentinels at least one win from the threat to the bot lane there, but I'm gonna take Red still. Hank, give us your predictions for both series? I don't know if I actually got your prediction for C9 Fury, but what are you thinking?
I think C9 take it 2-1, and I think Red take it 2-1.
Yeah.
I will, and then after I get up, I'm gonna walk off the splinters in my butt from sitting on the fence. So I apologize.
Sure. Jamada, do you have any more faith in the LCS, lads?
Funnily enough, no. I'm in line with Hank here. I feel like C9 can very easily drop an individual game here. If an early game goes weird, I will lean more into it being a 2-0 though. I think that is the more likely outcome.
Yeah.
But compared to the 2-1. Again, I just feel like the unfortunate thing about these Brazilian teams, as much as I've come to love them, both over the kind of extended peaks I've got on, and then obviously more recently with the co-streaming, I think their lack of discipline in the mid game is going to be something that C9 just lap up, because they've done it to every other LCS team, and that's kind of the problem. Lion were the first team that really came into them with discipline and with strong decision-making philosophies in how they wanted to handle objectives, and I think that's why they struggled outside of the more minutiae, one-to-one interactions between certain players. And I just don't feel like Furia have that in them. As for Red Sentinels, I actually think Sentinels will lose this series. Hell, I could weirdly see it being a close 2-0. Like, as in, like, it will be a 2-0, but Red just take, like, 2-2 close games that end up falling in Red's pockets. Again, I think the mid lane is where I'm really concerned. Darkwings has not demonstrated a particularly strong level of performance to me. And again, I think that his champion pool is quite flat and very predictable, and I think pinchable and subsequently then punishable once they're in game. But it's the jungle matchup that I'm concerned would be an issue for Red. With, again, if Curse is put in positions where he is the one that has to progress the game forward, he's the one that has to press the VIR, he's the one that has to be in a position to not get one shot in front of an objective. I think you guys probably agree. You've watched a lot more Curse than I have.
We'll give him the Nidalee again. Don't worry about that. We'll give him the Nidalee. He'll
that echoes Hellion Nidalee. That was wow. No, that was crazy.
Exactly. The bread will be buttered for Sentinels, and especially the bot side, just in general, I think that would just be a winning 2v2 every game that they play. So Red are probably gonna have to put out some fires there throughout the series.
Yeah, I think the more I think about C9 Furia, I think I am the entire of 2026. I have been living in middle of 2025 for Furia, and we're just not there anymore. The world has moved on, sadly, from MSI 2025, and Furia kind of hasn't, and like in a bad way. So I think I need to, I'd have to give C9 2-0. I think I worry about them there. I'd love to like take, I think it's either a Furia 2-0 or a C9 2-1. I'd love to take the Furia odds, but I don't think I reasonably can. I think the last thing before we wrap up, overall winner of the Copa Americas? Are we C9ing it, or
love to be wrong?
We think there's...
Give me C9. Yeah.
I
think they
I'm trying to think about the Red C9 matchup now, just like for the presuming that happens. I mean, does Venom Vulcan, are they like bot punishers? Do they like beat people particularly, or?
They can be. I mean, for me, I'm with Vulcan. It's more about his out of lane antics, and especially if you put him on a bard. I think Vulcan.
Yeah, Vulcan bard.
Vulcan's liable to be one-off games here and there where he's just like the best bard in the West, and then other games it's like, you know, we're back down to like a 6.5, and you know, some ults may be good, some ults nearly, you know, lose you the entire series.
Frosty's actually the best bard in the West, so you know, we'll simply take it. And I think it's the most banned champion against Red still. Okay, I think I can have enough belief to take Red. I don't think I can't say Furia. Like, I bet Furia against Red every single time and was wrong every time, so I just have to stop doing that. But I think I can like have belief in the Red boys. For what do you as you think it's BC9 as well, right? But like it's I think that's probably the house choice. Like that's the smart money.
Again, I'd love to be wrong. I wouldn't be like stunned if Cloud didn't win it, but
I'm probably trading pretty heavily off travel woes and home field advantage at this point to get rid of it. Which is powerful.
I mean, Cloud9's a good team, man. Like until Lion woke up and put all the Voltron pieces together, Cloud9 was the best team in the LCS.
It kind of felt like Lion weren't a good team until like 2 weeks ago, and then they were like,
until they really were.
I mean, that break did them some serious wonders. I think very, very obviously. And again, it just seems to be in part the inspired effect, right? One thing that we normally don't get is like very consistent comm check-ins, and the LCS production have adored. They've been enamored by the button that says Lion comms post replay.
Inspired shot call.
And we've heard it very, very directly. Obviously, everyone knows Inspired is a very vocal player. He's very opinionated, and this is not like flame for the Lion players, but they don't strike me necessarily as players who are particularly strong-willed in how they want the game to be played. So I see a lot of these Lion players as being very malleable to what Inspired wants, and seemingly what Inspired wants he gets. And he got his 5th title. So
yeah, the interesting thing about that is because that's kind of what it felt like FlyQuest was before, where it was Inspired and Whippo deciding how the game was going to be played and where they were going to play it, and then eventually, after like a couple of years, Masu and everyone else just kind of revolted and were like, they pulled a Margot and were like, who's this guy think he is, Faker? And just walked out of practice and were like, I ain't doing what this guy says. We always have to do what this guy says. And then they were like, nah. So I wonder if it's just like new team, new bunch of people who aren't tired of it yet, or if they actually are just more amenable to that style of play. Because like I definitely believe Berserker, Isles, and Dokla at least are like fully. I think Dokla's just chill. Like, are you gonna let me start? Okay, yeah, let's do what Inspired says. Fine. And then Saint, I don't know, he's not been around too long. He's not been in the region for that long. Like, won't have too much of a voice potentially. So yeah, I think it's a good setup for Inspired to just be like, I think we should do this, and his ideas are pretty good, it seems. Okay, that's gonna about wrap us up. Thank you very much, Jamada, for joining us. And we hope you continue to partake of and enjoy the CBLOL. We always love having more eyes on it because this region is fun as hell.
Yeah, I've been calling it baby LPL. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, what is it? It's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we might need to get a DNA test, man. These guys might be related. Like, it's hilarious. How much like gameplay identity and DNA they seem to share. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. I've enjoyed it so much. Yeah,
thank you very much, everybody, for watching either through Jamada stream or on the eventual YouTube video when it comes out. As always, you can follow the CBLOL English twitch.tv/CBLOL English, where we will be broadcasting all of the CBLOL games as and when they happen at the usual times with a cast, with some lovely casters, including myself and 404, and good producers when they're not busy, and bad ones when they are. But we've been doing that for many years, and we wouldn't skip it for the world. It's just a great time, to be honest. And you can follow us on socials at CBLOL English as well. We have a community Discord server that people can join if they want to join our fantasy league, talk about the region, and generally just enjoy all things CBLOL with us. So with that, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And now, if you're currently here live on Jamada stream, open up the Copa Americas, because Fury is about to 2-0 C9. Yeah. So you don't want to miss that. And for everyone watching on YouTube, we will see you. I don't know when we see you. Next split, potentially, but who knows? We'll see you when we see you.